Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you all for joining us. Don't forget, got some great stories on KIDOTalkRadio.com. You can always sign up for the KIDO Talk Radio app. It's going to be, it's free. You go to the App Store, Google Play, and there you have it. Just type in KIDO Talk Radio. You can get KIDO anywhere, anytime. Some wonderful stories. We've got our exclusive pictures of the new blue at the Boise State Field, a tribute to Dee Sarton, and CBD oil continuing to percolate in the Treasure Valley. Those stories and more on our website. Joining us now, Congressman Russ Fulcher. Congressman, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. And I can attest that the app works just fine. I listen to KIDO from Washington, D.C. all the time.
Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate it. And speaking of what's going on, whether in Idaho or in Washington, how's that Mueller report going as far as summer reading?
I shouldn't make light of it. I actually have the entire report. In fact, I was doing some reading of that this morning. I wanted to be able to say that I actually read the whole thing, and I have not read the whole thing yet. I'm probably about 80 pages in right now, but. It's interesting to me as I look at this and go through this. It appears that the president was in fact not guilty of collusion or obstruction, but he's definitely guilty of not wanting to be impeached for it. I say that a bit tongue in cheek because this thing has taken up so much time and energy. And frankly, I don't think it's over. As I survey the body of people here that are just bent on this thing, I don't think we're done with it yet, unfortunately. But Kevin, bottom line is I haven't been able to see anything there that would suggest the president had improper involvement.
Yet, I don't know if I want to say, dare I call her your colleague? Nancy Pelosi is quoted by several sources saying she wants the president put in jail. Maybe you'll be next.
I've actually talked to a number of my Democrat colleagues, and it's a whole different deal when you're one-on-one, away from the voting chamber and away from the large body of members at the same time. I can tell you for a fact there are at least some who describe the inner workings of the Democrat Party as one that's tremendously conflicted, that they'll be in their Democrat caucus, and some of them will be warning that if we pursue an impeachment path, this is going to backfire in a huge way in 2020 for the next election, and that Democrats will be held liable for that. There's another side in that conference that in particular, tend to be the newer ones, which are basically just, these are not my words, these are his, rabid in the sense that we have got to pursue impeachment. That's what we ran on. That's what it was as an anti-Trump platform, and they read the same report that I am, and they see different things. And Kevin, the bottom line is this: do I see anything that's impeachable through the lens as objective as I can, with what I've seen, with what I've heard, with what I've read? No. But an impeachable offense is whatever the majority of the members of Congress say it is. Now, we all know it's not going to go anywhere if it does pass the House. It's not going to go any further. Frankly, I think my Democrat colleague who suggested it backfires, I think he's right. And so we'll certainly be ready if this comes to a head, and I think it probably will. It will certainly be ready on our side, and we will lay the case. That's another one of the reasons that I'm actually going through the entire thing, but unfortunately, I think this probably continues for a while.
Congressman Russ Fulcher joining us. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, is someone who has, continues to serve America. Impeachment cannot be good for the country regardless of where you line up on which partisan line of scrimmage. It's just not a good thing.
No, it's not. And I was fortunate enough to have tuned into your show just a little bit before coming on. And I couldn't help but compare in my mind or try to imagine, Kevin, what was the cast of characters in that chamber like in the 1940s? Would this kind of activity have happened? What if it would have happened? What if there would have been as much dissension then as there is now? Would we be a country? Would Europe be under Nazi rule? And the short answer is I don't know, but you can't help but think about those things. I remember during the State of the State speech when right after I had taken office, looking over and seeing some of my colleagues failing to stand when the president acknowledged some World War II veterans, some in fact which had been on that beach in Normandy, and they wouldn't even stand up. And it couldn't help but cross my mind. We've come a long way.
Well, and Congressman, you prefer to be working in Idaho. We all understand that. But your new neighborhood with your palatial real estate and the rolling estates, and I'm being facetious here, it does allow you to walk the sacred, hallowed grounds of Washington. A lot of us in Idaho will never get to see, and you see that World War II memorial right between, the founder of our union, Washington, and the protector of our union, Lincoln. And here you have ordinary folks liberating, saving the world from fascism.
So it's truly one of those times in history that you can go back to and you can reflect on it and say, there's no question the impact that this had. We have many skirmishes, many debates, many events over the course of life that where someone takes a stand and it undoubtedly has some kind of an impact, but you can't really measure exactly what that was. That event, the Normandy invasion, that had a clear impact that in fact changed the world. And I can't imagine what that must have been like. I had the honor of helping present an award to a gentleman from Boise who was 99 years old, who was there, wounded twice. And I can only imagine what they went through, what that must have been like. All I can say is this, and I meant it. I got down on my knees to this gentleman who was in a wheelchair, and I held both of his hands. I looked him in the face, and I said, "Thank you so much," because if he and his buddies wouldn't have been there, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation, certainly in this fashion on the radio, Kevin.
You're right. Our great friend, Congressman Russ Fulcher, joining us. Congressman, here at KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, people are very concerned, obviously, about the situation at the border. You're on the tip of the spear. What's going on? I know the president wants to secure the border. You're for safe and secure borders, and yet we continue to have these people flooding the zone.
Have you noticed that a few weeks ago, a lot of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle kept saying the word manufactured crisis, manufactured crisis, manufactured crisis? You don't hear that anymore because that narrative got entirely blown away with something called the truth. Kevin, we do have a major problem there, and what a lot of people don't realize is that it doesn't just affect Americans, and what's happening isn't just unfair to Americans; it's unfair to the people who are being told en masse from Guatemala and southern countries, Central American countries, just get to that border and everything is like a finish line, because it's not fair to them, because of the masses have hit such a level right now that those border lines and those border towns and the conditions that that those people are going through, and frankly, the positions that's putting our border security people in is just untenable. Our border security have been so deluged. They're policemen, they're babysitters, they're medics, they're anything, but they do anything and everything except for the job that they were hired to do. They have compassion, but yet when you're simply overwhelmed every single day, you can't be effective with your job. And so this is a crisis. We have been able to channel incremental resources to those regions, and we'll continue to do so. But sanity truly has to prevail with our friends across the aisle in order to address it the way that we need to. And there's answers. We have solutions. We just don't have the cooperation right now of enough colleagues to actually put them in place.
Congressman Fulcher joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. You know, Congressman, this is a report that came out from the Senate. And we talked to Senator Crapo about this earlier in the week concerning senior care and the state of federal funding for senior care facilities. There was a list of them that were not very good places, a few of them in Idaho, a few of them in your congressional district, our home, if you will. Look, we all know how much you have compassion for people and want to help people. Your thoughts on what the government can do to get these programs up to speed?
You know, Kevin, my mother has always been a strong influence in my life. She turned 90 years old last month. And I remember that she shared with me years ago, and still periodically does, son, remember, there was a time when there was no such thing as health and welfare. In other words, it was the responsibility of the families, of the communities, of the churches, of the community clubs and social clubs to take care of those who were the most vulnerable. I'm not suggesting that that's what we do, but what's happened in one generation is we have totally transcended away from that to one where, for the most part, the expectation is upon this thing called government. Now, there's probably a happy medium in there somewhere, but what I'm trying to point out is what we've done is we have put the responsibility for a lot of that on some program that gets appropriated once every 2 or 3 years and is rolled into a debate with 50 other different appropriation items in a place 3,000 miles away. Not exactly the most efficient model to fuel that kind of thing. My best advice is twofold on that. And that is, one, to those of us in Idaho and anywhere across the country for that matter, let's not forget that we have a responsibility personally to help care for our families and the most vulnerable. And at the same time, frankly, I do have a responsibility as a representative to try to use what resources that are there to implement them the most efficiently and in a manner where we get the best bang for the buck in those circumstances.
Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of work to do, as always, Congressman Fulcher.
Well, you know, it's I always like to mention too, Kevin, there are positive things too. Sometimes we just don't hear about it. Let's go back to that Normandy discussion just for a moment. If it wasn't for that, we would not have enjoyed the prosperity, the general prosperity that we do. For the most part, we don't have to worry day to day about our personal safety. We live in a place where, generally speaking, there's a rule of law. And I know some people might argue that, but if you do want to argue it, go overseas somewhere and start looking around. You don't have to go very far before truly you find yourself, you're in danger on a day-to-day basis. We don't have that. And so a lot of blessings have come through as a result of our history, the uniqueness of this nation. And we still adhere to that, and we can always improve, and we're going to improve. But there's positive things that we need to be thankful for too. And I'm honored to be part of trying to promote and keep those things in place as well.
Congressman Fulcher, we always appreciate you. We thank you so much for joining us today, and keep your powder dry, sir.
I will do that, and thank you again for what you all do, and just the positive things that happen on the Kevin Miller Show, and the mouthpiece that you give to many who otherwise would not have it. Kevin, you're very much appreciated.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Take care.
Congressman Fulcher joining us. Coming up next, a deputy who wanted to pick up an engagement ring was asked to leave because he was carrying a service weapon. We'll tell you about it next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
If he's an officer, I think he's entitled to have a gun on him at all times.
The officer was on duty. It was his right to carry his gun.
Wednesday, people in Statesville sound off on a situation between the Iredell County Sheriff's Office and Kay Jewelers.
It's not just an attack on this individual officer. It's not just an attack on this agency. It's an attack on law enforcement in general.
Sheriff Darren Campbell telling social media one of his deputies went on his lunch break to pick up a ring there he'd already paid for. He was in uniform but was turned away by an employee because of his gun.
Our policy of a uniformed officer is not going to be disarmed under no circumstances.
The sheriff says the deputy was asked to put the gun in the car, but knew he wasn't allowed to do that.
If there's an emergency or what if somebody come into that store while the officer was there in full uniform, the officer cannot perform his duties by being able to protect another person or this store.
Wednesday, Kay Jewelers released a statement apologizing and pledging more store training for gun policies, specifically when it comes to law enforcement. Wednesday, thousands of comments coming in from community members in response.
What's the difference of him coming in to save him if somebody robbed him and then coming in to purchase something?
The sheriff hoping this situation and conversation will catch the attention of other stores.
We'll help an officer from being embarrassed like this again.
The jewelry store said in a statement today it would be reaching out to that deputy and the sheriff's office. When we talked to the sheriff tonight, he said he was awaiting that call.
There we have it from our friends in Charlotte, North Carolina. And whether it's in North Carolina or Idaho, the idea that you're going to ask a law enforcement officer not to be armed when you're going into a store. Oh, silly rabbits east of the Great River. Traffic and weather together. You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Kevin Miller in the morning. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave. And I'm Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Coming up, one city decides, yes, they're going to join Denver, Colorado, and it's in the West, and it's in California. They're going to legalize the mushrooms. Can you guess? We'll tell you about that after the news. Also, if you'd like to comment on, well, this deputy being disarmed, the disarming of America continues at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Come on. We're going to have, what are we going to do? Have them walk around with, pillows or something like that? Come on. It's just not correct. So we'll take a look at that when you're having people asking law enforcement officers not to carry their weapons when they're picking up a ring that they paid for. I don't know what, I really don't know what people are thinking. But YouTube has decided to pull, quote-unquote, extreme videos. And if you're a big fan of conservative comedian Steven Crowder, you're not going to be happy about this one. YouTube says it will pull thousands of videos and channels espousing extreme views. According to the New York Times, they say it's going to happen Wednesday. Gone will be videos alleging that a group is superior in order to justify discrimination, segregation, or exclusion, according to the company blog. Content denying specific true and violent acts, such as the Sandy Hook shooting, will also be removed. What do you think of this plan? Well, are they going to ban the ISIS videos? Are they going to ban the kill death to America videos? I hope they do that, and I hope Facebook does that as well. It always amazes me the hypocrisy of social media companies that will, in fact, ban Tom Munns, ban Kevin Miller, and yet Al-Qaeda and ISIS roam free. Crazy, isn't it? Can't wait to hear what you have to say next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. And want to let everybody know, rodeo season kicking off. Rodeo in Eagle. Boy, how about that? Already rodeo time. Before you know it, it'll be college football time. You can go to our website, KIDOTalkRadio.com, for a peek at the Blue. A big open house yesterday. It was free to run around on the Blue. I don't know what, if any, other team in college footballs allows people to run around on their turf. You could check out pictures of the cheerleaders, the blocking sleds, very, very captivating photos of the blocking sleds, and also some of the players there signing autographs, and really a huge community event. I wondered just how big it would be for people, how big of an event it would be to sell, pieces of the Blue. And I think a few years ago, I shared with you that a colleague of mine, Dave Tester, and I, we went out and we were going to do some gathering of the Blue. It was, 9 years ago, the last time they redid it. And, they ran us off. So this time around, they sell it. And I think they were actually sold out, very, very quickly. Now, if you're a member of the Broncos supporters, the Booster Club, you got in at 5. There was a line past the Hall of Fame, well out into the street yesterday. And then you had, the general public at 6. So hopefully, if you did go there, you got a piece of college football history. I had a friend of mine from Alabama actually gave me the idea. I went and, you do crazy things for your friends. So, you get here 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, and then all of a sudden, you think because he's your friend, he's your buddy, you're going to go to Boise State and hang out there for a couple hours last night and buying, again, a square foot of blue turf, and we'll be sending it to him. But it makes you do crazy things. Those photos available on KIDOTalkRadio.com. Joining us now, our college football expert, along with our expert on everything political, Tanya J. Powers of Fox News Radio on KIDO Talk Radio.
All right, that, sir, is fake news. Well,
apparently, Americans have a problem with fake news, and it was President Trump that pretty much outed fake news.
Do you see what I did there? I segued right into the topic there, which is fake news, by the way. A Pew Research Center survey has been done, and it's out now, and it says that half of U.S. adults consider fake news a major problem. They mostly blame politicians and activists for that problem. As far as who is responsible for fixing it, they also say that lies squarely at the feet of journalists to fix the misinformation problem. This is a really in-depth survey. They looked at a whole bunch of different things regarding fake news, how it spreads on social media and, how people respond to that. They also asked them to rank, what is a very big problem in the country today. Excuse me. And the first one overwhelmingly was drug addiction. That was 70%. They say 70% said that is a very big problem in the country today. It gets less as you go down the list. Affordability of health care was 67%. The U.S. political system is next. The gap between rich and poor is next. At 50% is made-up news. Now, what follows that is significant because that got a higher percentage of people who think that's a very big problem than violent crime, climate change, racism, illegal immigration, terrorism, which was just at 34%, and sexism. So made-up news is more of a problem viewed by the people in this survey than illegal immigration or even terrorism, which I found kind of surprising.
Or sexism, which I found surprising.
There's a lot in this survey. I mean, it's like 72 pages long. I've waded through a good portion of it yesterday and found some really significant things. Half of those surveyed said they have avoided talking to someone they thought would bring made-up news into the conversation.
Heck yeah.
Half of the social media news consumers they surveyed stopped following someone because they thought the person was posting made-up news and information. They don't feel that it's very rosy in the future either. 56% said the problem of the made-up news will get worse over the next 5 years.
Well, you're just full of good news.
I am full of good news today. Sorry about that.
No worries.
It's what they found, though.
Well, it just makes you wonder, the idea of objective news, whether that really exists anymore.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. I mean, that's always the goal. And one thing that I've always admired, maybe you'll agree with me, maybe you won't, is a journalist that lets the story be the star, as opposed to participatory journalism, which is what we see today. At least I see that on the television when they're going, hey, and look, I'm going to jump on the thing and look at me. And I'm like, I really don't want to look at you. I really want to know why this story is important.
Yeah, there's a million reasons for that. It has gotten a lot more, prevalent, like you said, because you do see a lot more of that. I think the flip side of that, though, is with social media, a lot of people want engagement of, the person telling the story. A lot of people want that. I particularly just like for the story to be told. I just want to tell the story. I don't want to be in it. I'd just rather tell it. So take that for what it's worth. But I do think objective journalism is still alive and well. I think a lot of it's being done by people across the country, especially on the local level, which is one of the reasons that I find it really sad when our newsrooms in local, markets get, pared down. That's a whole lot less people that are keeping an eye on your city council and, everything else that's going on that, where they can tell you what's happening.
A sign of the times, unfortunately, as Prince would say.
It is.
Tanya J. Powers, I better get out because I'm up to no good, but we appreciate your insight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anytime.
Let's go back to the phones. Brian in Nampa joins us on KIDO Talk Radio. Brian, good morning.
Hey, Kevin. I'll try to get through this without choking up. Full disclosure, I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, and so was my grandfather and his brother, better known or nicknamed the Mormons. They both served in World War II. I want you to picture this for a moment, crawling through a little hole with a cheesy flashlight in 1911, facing your enemy, and also doing a job of standing on the other side of that hole as the enemy comes screaming out, firing rounds at you, and you killing them with a flamethrower. That's war. I know we all come from different backgrounds and beliefs, but I'm going to speak for my grandpa since he's not here. He'd tell you, if you want to honor those vets, live a better life, do better. And I don't need to really spell that out for anybody. I think we all know what that means. That's all I got, Kevin.
Thank you, Brian. God bless. And we continue to honor those who have served when we're looking at ordinary folks doing extraordinary things. So easy for us to talk about the imagery of war. But back to what Brian said, I try to refrain from this, and I hope that you do as well. When people say that political battle was a war, no, D-Day was a war. Total war. How many of us know the concept of total war? The concept where every means, every asset of a nation is used to defeat the enemy. The last time total war happened in this country, World War II, where you had rations, you had men that were away, women at work. That was war. It always seems to me with all due respect, a disservice when people say, I'm a warrior for such and such. No, warriors in Kandahar or on the border of North Korea or having served or liberated Europe. That's a warrior. Us, we're just blessed to be their beneficiaries, blessed to have lived in a time after they liberated the world. You know, there were no identity politics. There were no, I'm a this American and America's bad. Really wasn't that way when Hitler was trying to destroy the Jews, when Hitler was trying to conquer Russia and Europe, when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. Always amazed me, and if you've traveled to Pearl Harbor, I'd love to get your impressions. You go there, and there's a ton of Japanese and Chinese tourists, and I don't understand their fixation with it. And it's a sad, tragic place, and it's very small. When you go in there and you look at all these Japanese Zeros that zoomed in and the dive bombers and everything else, and because it's been over 75 years, we look back and go, tell that to the people in their 90s or their kids in their 70s and 60s, or their grandkids in their 50s and 40s, or the folks that think they know so much because they've got 25 Twitter followers. We are so blessed by the sacrifices, the fear that was overcome, as Brian just so nobly shared with us. And look at today. How dare anyone attack America? How dare anyone say the bad things about America? Recently we were talking about Virginia Tech University, where they're having segregated graduation ceremonies. Or when people say I'm triggered, with all due respect and not to be insensitive, what do you think those guys were going through over there? Were they triggered? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
According to Mother Nature Network, more U.S. cities are pushing to decriminalize magic mushrooms. The City Council in Oakland, California voted unanimously on June 4th to decriminalize magic mushrooms. The vote makes Oakland the second U.S. city to decriminalize them after Denver did the same on May 8th. Psilocybin, the substance in psychedelic mushrooms, can cause hallucinations and mood changes, eliciting spiritual or emotional experiences. Mushrooms containing psilocybin are still not allowed to be sold, and driving under the influence is illegal.
Well, imagine that. So Oakland joining the gravely mistaken people of Denver, Colorado, and hopefully not the state of Oregon. I believe Oregon will debate that in a vote coming up in November. Good morning, Kevin Miller in the morning. KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, waking up on the right side. So here we have the brilliance that is the leadership in Oakland, California, saying, why not? What's wrong with legalizing the shrooms? What's wrong with the shrooms just coming out, running wild, having a good time? People are responsible. And, of course, people are going to say, well, Kevin Miller, you have alcohol. If we're not responsible with alcohol, how in the world can we expect the populace to be responsible when it comes to the shrooms? But remember, the shrooms are to help you. They're therapeutic. They're the best ever. Doctors, they don't know much. Let's continue to devalue the medical establishment because most folks, let's face it, they're a little upset with doctors and medical folks. Not really the doctors, but the move to big medicine, to big pharma, and everything else, right? In fact, you've got a doctor in Ohio charged with murder because he kept prescribing opioids again and again and again. So here's the skinny on this. in Oaktown, home of the Oakland A's and MC Hammer. As we just reported, the second city to decriminalize magic mushrooms, not one dissenting vote of the Oaktown City Council. Other psychoactive plants like peyote, peyote, and Anastasia, or whatever the heck it is, were also decriminalized. City council members heard testimony from people who use psychedelics to treat issues like addiction, depression, and PTSD. Tell you, whenever I'm depressed, I just go to the food court. But to each his own. Other lawmakers say decriminalizing the shrooms allow the police to focus in on more serious crimes. Really? Wonder if they asked the police that. KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Having trouble with that one. Just can't stop laughing. Good morning, Dave. And I'm Kevin Miller. So here we have it. Oakland joins Denver, decriminalizing the shrooms. And I love this idea that magic mushrooms have legitimate medical uses. I love the idea that people are saying, well, they're getting rid of being uptight about the drugs. Well, if it isn't little Mikey Miniger.
I know.
I didn't know if you were still around.
My friendship dues is way underpaid. I know.
All I can say is 1.6 million pennies and no Miniger in the spring.
I believe me. I'm going to send a check, and I'll let you know. I don't know. I don't know what happened. It's hard for me to get over there in the morning. The only way I want to come over is the morning. But besides that, and I trust me, I'll take care of Reverend Bill. I promise you. I just don't need all the fanfare.
Well, we have a lot of fanfare here. It's a pretty rinky establishment we have here.
Janky would be more the word. So, Oakland, I flew in there 2 years ago to go announce a boat race, and my brothers and I were raised in the Bay Area, and we flew into Oakland, rented a car, and I can tell you this, Kevin, that's exactly what they need is some mind-altering freaking mushrooms. Yeah, they'll do well with those. It was the most depressing 25 or 30-mile drive I have taken in a long, long time. It is full. It's a city of blue tarps and tents all along the freeway, everywhere you look. I mean, and people here, I have friends that have never ventured into California that are in their 30s and 40s here, and I would help pay for people to go down there and see what the liberal policies have done for that state. And that state, Kevin, and I've told you this before, it's probably the most beautiful state naturally in the United States, other than, say, Hawaii, right? It's a gorgeous state, and it's destroyed. Lady come in the shop the other day, license plate bolt broke out of the back of the car. Her mechanic that she chose here in town, and she came to me, and I could just tell. I said, ma'am, have you just moved from California because you're buying new plates? And she looked at me, and she was probably my age, 65, somewhere in there, and she said, I have just moved from California. And I said, well, I hope you enjoy Boise. She said, I'm worried. I said, you're worried? This is a true story. She said, I'm very worried. In fact, we're so worried that we rented a house instead of buying a house because we are scared to death of the influx of the Californians. Now, how's that? The Californians are worried about the Californians moving here.
You just call me the Paul Revere of Idaho.
I know, Kevin, and I actually busted your grapes one day on air about calming down. This was a couple years ago, and I had no idea what was going to happen to us. And I drive it every day, just like you do, and I'm amazed. But it's sad. It's really sad, especially when Californians are worried about Californians. So I just know that when Oakland lets drugs in worse than it is, it's pathetic. It's pathetic. It just tells you the politicians have zero feelings for the people. None. I don't know whether they're getting paid. I don't have any idea what would make a normal human being give them another gateway to poverty and tents. I don't know.
Mike Miniger, good to have you back. You need to call in more often. We got to run, sir.
Thank you. See you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Mike Miniger, Garden City. Check him out today.